Fundrise NAV reinvestments are here. Let's talk about what this actually means, how it differs from the way things were before this announcement, and what are pros, cons, and of course, tax implications of this new feature coming up. If you're new to Fundrise, make sure to open a new account using my referral link in the description below and deposit just $10. For a limited time only, you will get a $50 bonus added to your account absolutely free. Don't miss this opportunity. Now, let's get started. The official announcement states that Fundrise investors will now have an option of either reinvesting NAV distributions or depositing these distributions straight to their bank account. These options were always possible for dividend distributions, but not for NAV distributions. Let's first define NAV. NAV stands for net asset value and is calculated by subtracting funds liabilities from its assets and then dividing by a total number of shares that are circulating. Put simply, it's a price per share of an E-REIT or an E-fund. In this video, when I refer to NAV, I actually mean NAV per share, which is the same thing as price per share. Prior to the NAV reinvestment announcement, Fundrise investors had no option to either reinvest NAV distributions or to deposit them straight to their bank account. Instead, what would happen is that the NAV of that certain fund would grow in value as the properties in that fund increased in value over time. This is very similar to how the price per share of a stock fluctuates up or down. This concept is much easier to understand with these simplified examples, so please try to follow along and then we will summarize everything at the end. In the first scenario, let's say you had 10 shares of East Coast E-REIT in 2021 and each share was worth just $1, giving you a $10 investment. 1 year later, the value of properties in this E-REIT doubled, and so each share now is worth $2 instead of $1, giving you a $20 portfolio, of which $10 is your initial investment and the other $10 is your profit. So now you would still have 10 shares of the East Coast E-REIT, but each share would be worth $2 instead of $1. The only way to get the profit into your bank account was to contact Fundrise and sell half of your shares. And when that is done, you would end up with 5 shares at $2 per share left invested with Fundrise and $10 in the bank. In the second scenario, we will start with the exact same numbers as in the first. So in 2021, you had 10 shares of the East Coast E-REIT and each share was worth $1 for a total of $10. 1 year later, the value of properties doubled, giving you yet again a $20 portfolio, $10 as your initial investment and the other $10 as profit. But this time, you will have a choice of what to do with the profit you made without selling any shares. You could decide to just put the profit in the bank, after which you will be left with 10 shares at $1 per share invested with Fundrise and $10 in your bank. You can also decide to reinvest the profit, which is simply like buying more shares of the E-REIT, leaving you with 20 shares at $1 per share, since the NAV does not change, and so it's like you purchased 10 additional shares at $1 per share. Now, these are oversimplified examples and the actual outcomes and calculations are more complex. If you look closely, the end result is the same in both scenarios. In both scenarios, you end up with $20. $10 was your initial investment and $10 were your profits. Differences arise depending on what you decide to do with your profit. This chart shows what you will have in your Fundrise account depending on what you decide to do with the profit. As you remember, in the first scenario, the NAV changes. And so if you decide to reinvest your profits, you will get 10 shares at $2 per share, or you will have 5 shares at $2 per share if you decide to take your profits to the bank. In the second scenario, the price per share does not change, and so you get 20 shares at $1 per share if you decide to reinvest your profits, or 10 shares at $1 per share if you decide to take your profits to the bank. So, if it all leads to the same amount of money in your pocket, then why is Fundrise even bothering to do this? To answer this question, let's first define NAV distribution. NAV distribution is a one off distribution made by a fund. Well, why would they even do this distribution to begin with? Well, they could do this in order to return excess uninvested cash to the investors or to maintain compliance with REIT rules. Fundrise designates most funds as REITs for tax purposes. In order to qualify as a REIT, the fund must distribute a minimum of 90% of its taxable income. So if a fund sells one of its projects for a higher value than it was originally purchased at, the fund recognizes a taxable gain and they may choose to distribute those profits. This distribution will have the effect of reducing the fund's NAV by the proportional amount of the distribution, which was shown in the second scenario where the price per share, or the NAV, hasn't increased upon this distribution. As a side note, the option to turn NAV distribution on and off can be found under Account Settings and Advanced Options tab. Finally, let's go over the pros, cons, and tax implications of this new option. The first positive is that if you decide to take the profit to your bank account, you won't dilute your shares, and so if the NAV increases in the future, you will get oversized returns. Second is that if you decide to reinvest your profit, you will get more shares, which over time may result in oversized returns. The only con I can think of is that NAV distribution may generate a taxable event. When it comes to taxes, everyone's favorite, for REITs with sales resulting in large taxable gains during the year, distributions may be classified as capital gain distributions, which are generally taxed at a preferential rate, usually at about 15%. However, it is possible that portions may be classified differently, which means it may be taxed at your income tax bracket as high as 37%. Now, guys, this is it for me, but I want to hear from you. Do you think NAV distribution is a good option to have? Will you be turning this option on or off? Will you be taking your money to the bank or reinvest it? Leave your comments down below. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my entire Fundrise playlist linked in the description below. It has over 60 videos on everything and anything you need to know before, during, and after investing with Fundrise. And of course, do not forget, if you're a new investor, to sign up with Fundrise using my referral link in the description below. You will get a $50 bonus, completely free, no strings attached, added to your account. Now, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, guys. Cheers. Peace.